Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm very happy to have Jean Morrison as my guest today. As a fifth-degree black belt and assault survivor, Jean is committed to raising awareness about sexual and domestic violence in all its forms so that communities and individuals can build confidence, resilience, and trauma-informed response. As a board-certified cognitive specialist and behavior therapist, she assists individuals and families surviving after trauma, abandonment, or neglect, and also those with cognitive or physical extra needs. For more than 3 decades, she has helped children, teens, and adults redirect their emotional challenges through art, exercise, coping and resilience skills, and self-defense. She opened Bright Star Martial Arts in 2010 to provide a long-term developmental program for children on the autism spectrum or other cognitive or physical challenges. The studio, located in Saugus, California, continues to be a beacon of hope that builds confidence, social and physical skills for children and adults who could not otherwise train. Welcome, Jean, and thank you so much for joining me today to discuss the wonderful work that you do in supporting those with special needs and other challenges.
Thanks, Gilda. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
So, to begin with, let's talk about martial arts for kids with autism. Many people think that this will teach kids with cognitive challenges to be more aggressive. Is that true?
Well, no, but it is definitely one of the most common questions or concerns that I have when talking to parents about potentially enrolling their child in an adapted martial arts program. Aggression can come from a couple of different places, but because adapted martial arts really at its core is working on virtually all the executive functions and physical functions at the same time, we have great success on helping kids to free up some of the frustration that might be driving aggression, but also to help channel aggression to a better understanding of aggression, to understand comparables like hit soft, no hit hard, really to learn to control impulses, to understand what to hit, what not to hit, and when, to explore those comparables I just talked about, force and opposites, soft, hard, loud, quiet, and situations that require self-advocacy. In all of that really requires some level of involvement with building executive function. And so if you have an adapted martial arts program like we do that starts with an understanding that that's exactly what we're targeting, building executive function and self-esteem, then what we've found is that aggression naturally decreases. I'm thinking of one student that I had in particular. His dad, who's a psychiatrist, actually enrolled him when he was 11 for the specific reason he was beating up on his younger brother. And came to us and said, look, we need to do something about this. And he gave us that challenge. That young man, we worked with him as in both one-on-one and group classes. We wrapped our services around his needs, and ultimately he was able to understand, you don't hit everybody hard, you hit softly. He learned self-control, and he really didn't have much in the beginning, all truth be told, but he worked on it. We worked on it with him. Today, he's able to assist. He's able to be an assistant instructor at the studio in Santa Clarita. And he's become a 2-time state champion. He's never been disqualified when sparring in tournament. And I think that that's a huge testament. He's come such a long way. He was 11 when he started. Now he's, I think, 23. So you can see that's a long-term development process, but how much has he learned? I feel completely confident that as he is now going out in the world, you would describe him probably as moderately impacted on the spectrum. He has a job now, and I can trust that he's going to go out there and understand how to deal with people respectfully, and understand if he feels frustrated or somehow dysregulated, that he has tools to be able to get him back on track appropriately. And that's what a good adaptive martial arts program can do in terms of aggression and those kinds of aggressive behaviors.
So in actuality, it has just the opposite effect that some people or most people think that it will have. A very positive impact in terms of lessening the aggressive tendencies and being able to channel those feelings and energies into a much more constructive avenue.
I was going to add, if you think about it, those are the same kinds of things that you want for a typical child. An outlet for frustration and to build an understanding of how to appropriately channel and respond to challenges with or without aggression. What do you do with that? We all feel these things, but that's exactly what you would expect for a child going into a typical martial arts class to learn. And so, we just know in adapted martial arts, because we build our entire program on executive functioning and understanding kids who have those challenges, we're able to provide those opportunities for kids who are on spectrum or have other sorts of needs.
So in addition to channeling the aggressive tendencies of someone who would have those feelings, why do you think that adapted martial arts is one of the most effective interventions?
Well, it gets back to what I was just talking about in terms of our focus on executive function alongside physical competency. Building both of those at the same time, side by side, has a tremendously positive impact on really anybody who enrolls in a martial arts program, but especially for kids who have physical and or neurological challenge. And we understand we're specifically targeting executive function, working on building those skills. We're specifically targeting larger range of motion, better proprioceptive skills, better balance. And we're doing that in a way that we know the vast majority of people who we come across need.
So how does your approach differ and or compare to the approach of a mainstream school?
What we start with is an understanding of what our students need, and then wrap our program around those students. So let me just back up for a second and say, if you went into a typical martial arts class, the problem is that the martial arts programs really aren't built around an understanding of executive function. They may or may not be built around the instructor's understanding of physical function, but not necessarily executive function. So what do I mean is just that, instructors, as martial arts instructors, you learn your style of martial arts and you replicate a teaching of those specific moves. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you understand how the brain is working in order to get those things to happen. So it's not like we're all experts in the brain. We're not. But we take into account executive function, and we look at every single person that we come across and we go, okay, we need to work on impulse control here, or we need to build emotional control here. And we literally work with each person that we come across. We assess it, and we provide the skills necessary. The other thing, though, in what I've found is in typical martial arts programs too, there's a set of criteria that you have to meet if you're going to move to the next belt level, for instance, and a time frame within which to do it. A lot of the time, our students go in and really struggle with being able to work within that kind of a framework and need either more time or more attention, neither one of which a traditional martial arts school is equipped to provide without paying a lot of extra money. Because we have the expertise, I train my staff. I work as a behavior therapist, and I train my staff to understand simple ABA priming and prompting. How do you do play therapy and make things extra exciting? How to observe and understand, the give and take and what kind of flexibility is needed with each student, and when you need to take a harder line, with something and just draw a healthy boundary,
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
help the students understand that. We have to understand sensory need and how to build communication. And that's frankly, really can be very beyond what a typical martial arts instructor is prepared to offer. I would just add that a lot of the kids that we work with, because we never, at the studio in Santa Cruz, we never turn anyone away. If someone is nonverbal, we find a program that's going to work for that person, or provide services that work for that person. What we're doing is really just wrapping the services around the individual.
So based on that approach, which I think is fantastic, by the way, can adapted martial arts also bring a child's IEP goals into the classroom, say from their regular school classroom into the adapted martial arts classroom?
Well, yeah, IEP goals range widely. Sometimes there's communication goals, there's social skills goals. There's goals specific to, reading comprehension, things like that. So what I can say is that a lot of the time, the more information we have from a parent, the better we are able to hone in and support those skills being met. I've attended many IEPs for clients as a behavior therapist, but also just as the martial arts instructor, providing some insight into, hey, I know you're seeing some challenges in this area, but, in our class, we're actually seeing this kind of progress over here. Frequently the information we're able to provide is unique and can provide some inspiration or augmentation of what's going on in the IEP. What people's expectations are. But the more information we have about IEP goals and about, if a student is receiving ABA therapy or other sorts of therapies or occupational therapy, all that information, we take all that information in and can apply it directly in our adapted martial arts classes. So kicking a ball, catching a ball, fine motor skills, gross motor skills. If we're trying to make eye contact, if we're working on impulse control, and we're thinking just the bow in from the beginning can be a challenge, and is part of working on some children's programs. They are asked to stand at attention without wiggling and have quiet body. That's a program for a lot of kids on the spectrum. We're asking them to make eye contact and to repeat a short little oath, to be a good person, knowledge in the mind, honesty in the heart. But it's fun. And what we find is that kids that are having some challenges with eye contact in other areas, this becomes a preferred activity, and we get eye contact almost the entire time at certain times during the session. So, that's just an example. We can build in being a good sport, comparables, attributes, what color is that, using phrases, cooperative play, and certainly social skills. Our kids learn to be partners in class. They learn relay races. They learn games of tag. And sometimes it might take months for us to accomplish, okay, everybody now knows the rules for freeze tag. But nonetheless, they get that opportunity, you know? It's just a wide range of opportunities to explore every aspect of executive function and build physical skills side by side. So really, whatever therapies they're getting, including language therapies, we've been able to incorporate some version or some form of other therapies into our classroom settings.
It's so interesting to hear about how this can interweave with other therapies and that the child is receiving and other goals that the child has. The child or young adult, you know, whoever it happens to be, because I know you work with all ages. Now, your studio is in Southern California. What if someone is not in the Southern California area? Can you help them in any way, or do you perhaps know people in other areas that you can refer them to? How would that work?
You know, there's a very small number of people across the country who have more advanced programs in this area. In some cases, I can refer. In other cases, you know, I would just encourage someone to call me and talk to me about what they're trying to do. And I will certainly do my best to help point them in the right direction. I hope, though, we're setting up a framework right now where we may be able to grow these services more exponentially, but it's still going to it's in its infancy. So stay tuned on that.
It'll take some time and another podcast.
Yeah, it could be. You know, there's one thing before we move on to the next chat. I really wanted to touch briefly on an issue. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, not at all. As a matter of fact, I was just about to ask you if there's anything else you'd like to add that we haven't covered, and also,
great.
And also, what is the most important takeaway that you feel our listeners should have from our conversation?
Okay. Well, first I'm going to step back for a second and cover this topic, and then we'll do a takeaway. How about that?
Absolutely. That sounds good.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, bullying is such a big issue, right? It's a big issue today for all kids, typical or otherwise. But, you know, we know that, you know, from the World Health Organization that kids with any sort of disability, the chances are 3.7 times more likely that they are going to experience some form of abuse. Now, that abuse can be wide-ranging, not just bullying, but 3.7 times more likely is huge.
That's enormous, and it's very sad.
Right. And it has a lot to do with executive function. I mean, even kids, let's say, who are on the spectrum and are considered less impacted, or to use the other terms, high functioning. A lot of the kids that I've seen and young adults that I come across simply don't have an understanding of how to defend themselves. How to start, you know, what to do, whether or not it's okay. And especially because they haven't had specific training that it's okay to hit something sometimes and when it's okay. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's just critical that we provide extra needs folks with some sort of training for self-defense. And so if I want to get back and, get back to that takeaway, that would be likely it. You know, just please consider checking out an adapted martial arts program, even for a short period of time, for the benefit of your child. Whether that benefit is going to be just muscle tone, great, you know, but in most cases, we can provide some sort of training, even simple blocking and simple forms of communication that can alert someone that something has happened to your child. And many times we can go way beyond that and provide a more realistic understanding of self-defense, how to do it, when to do it, and if nothing else, I think, considering our kids are 3.7 times more likely to be abused, that's a skill you want them to have. Just talk.
I agree completely.
Just give me a call. My number is 661-309-2587. I'll repeat that, 661-309-2587. Just call me about your needs. Don't write off a martial arts program until you call me and talk to me about what your need is. Folks can also email me. Sometimes people feel more comfortable starting a conversation via email. And so you can reach me at IAM at findyouwithin.com.
So that's IAM, basically, IAM at findyouwithin, FINDYOUWITHIN.com, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jean, for taking the time to share information about your amazing program with me today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity to spread the word that, where there's so much that young people can learn from martial arts, and especially if there's somebody with extra needs. Don't write martial arts off. There's so much to be learned. So thank you for the opportunity to share that. I hope I've inspired a few.
Thank you again, and my pleasure. I also want to thank our listeners for spending a part of their day with us. I'm Gilda Evans, reminding you to take care of yourself and that special person in your life.